So, how does a modern democracy just die? How does a whole country, a culturally advanced one at that, go from being a republic to a brutal dictatorship in what, a little over 10 years? That's the big, terrifying question we're tackling today. And it all comes down to the story of Germany's Weimar Republic.
All right, let's dive right in. Picture this. It's 1919. Germany kicks off this brand new, bold experiment with democracy right after the absolute devastation of World War I. But then you fast forward just 14 years, and boom, it's a totalitarian dictatorship. How on earth did things go so wrong so fast? Well, the whole story, this terrifying transformation, it really begins with a foundation that was just deeply flawed from the get-go.
Yeah, to really get how it all crumbled, we've got to go back to the very beginning. You see, the Weimar Republic, it wasn't built on solid rock, not even close. From day one, it was basically standing on quicksand.
Just think about the hand this new government was dealt right out of the gate. It was literally born from the ashes of military defeat and total national humiliation. And what's its first big move? Signing the hated Treaty of Versailles, something a lot of Germans would never forgive. So right away, there's zero public trust. On top of that, the political system itself was a mess. We're talking constant elections, fragile governments that couldn't agree on anything, which meant they were often completely paralyzed, unable to get anything done. And what does that create? A dangerous power vacuum and a whole lot of angry, resentful people.
So, okay, you have this incredibly weak political system just teetering on the edge. And that fragile system, it was about to get hit by an absolute monster of an economic storm, one that would throw millions of ordinary Germans into total and complete despair.
The first major blow was something called hyperinflation. And look, we're not just talking about prices going up a little. This was a complete catastrophic collapse of their money. The government was trying to pay off these massive war debts, so what did they do? They just printed more and more and more money, until the money itself was basically worthless paper. This didn't just make daily life chaotic, it absolutely destroyed the financial security of the entire middle class. And this is the result. Seriously, just try to imagine it. Everything you've ever saved up, your pension, your nest egg, everything for your future, suddenly becomes completely worthless, like overnight. This wasn't some thought experiment. This was the cold, hard reality for an entire nation, and it just bred so much fear and desperation.
And then, just when it seemed like maybe, just maybe, things were starting to stabilize, the second economic blow hits. The 1929 Great Depression ripples across the globe, and it hits Germany hard. The impact was immediate and absolutely devastating. Just look at that spike in unemployment. It went through the roof, throwing millions and millions of people out of work. This wasn't just a bad recession, you guys. This was a full-blown societal crisis with crushing poverty everywhere.
So what happens when you have this perfect storm of political weakness and widespread economic despair? Well, into that chaos steps Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. And they didn't see a tragedy. Oh no. They saw a golden opportunity. And they came with a simple, seductive, and unbelievably dangerous solution. And the real power of the Nazi message was just how simple it was. This wasn't some complex economic theory, right? It was a direct, emotional promise that tapped right into people's deepest fears and resentments. We'll restore German pride. We'll tear up that awful Treaty of Versailles. And, most ominously, we'll give you an enemy to blame for all your problems.
And they didn't just whisper this message. They used a really sophisticated propaganda machine to blast it everywhere. We're talking massive theatrical rallies, powerful posters, party-controlled newspapers. They were so skillful at tailoring their promises to different groups. You're a farmer? We've got a promise for you. A veteran? For you too. Unemployed? We've got you covered. And through it all, they relentlessly painted this picture of Hitler as the one strong savior Germany was crying out for. But you have to understand, underneath all those promises of jobs and national pride, there was a deeply toxic ideology. At its very core, you had this extreme nationalism that demanded absolute, unquestioning loyalty. You had a virulent anti-Semitism that pointed the finger at Jewish people, blaming them for every single one of the nation's problems. And, maybe most importantly, you had a complete and violent rejection of democracy itself. So, with this growing wave of support, the Nazis managed to maneuver themselves right into a position of power. And once they got their foot in the door, they moved with stunning, and I mean brutal speed to tear down democracy itself. And the final collapse? It happened in the blink of an eye. Seriously, January 1933, Hitler is appointed chancellor. Okay, just 1 month later, there's a mysterious fire at the Parliament building, which gives them the perfect excuse for a crackdown. By March, they're using so-called emergency powers to suspend all civil liberties and just crush anyone who opposes them. In a matter of weeks, German democracy was just gone. And let's be crystal clear, this was not just a change in government. The Weimar Republic was dead and buried. And in its place, a brutal, totalitarian regime rose up, one where the state and the Nazi Party controlled every single aspect of a person's life. So when you look back at all this, the story of Weimar gives us a clear and, frankly, a timeless lesson. Democracies don't usually die from one single dramatic blow. It's more often a toxic recipe, a combination of things, a devastating economic crisis that makes people truly desperate, a weak, fractured political system that just can't handle it, and then powerful, effective propaganda that swoops in and exploits all that desperation for its own terrible ends. And that leaves all of us with a final and pretty critical question to think about. If we understand this recipe for collapse from the past, what does it teach us about the warning signs? What are the things we should be watching for today to make sure we protect democratic values in our own time?